Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when we sign up for a new account to get amazing odds boosts every single day. Rudo, Jesse, and AJ coming at you today. Going to be answering a bunch of listener questions across the course of the show. Of course, the first question and the news of the day, it being reported that Nathan MacKinnon was out skating and shooting pucks today. So certainly a positive note there. I don't want to make too much of it either, though. Jury's still out on where MacKinnon is exactly, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we have no timeline for it, and the whole thing has just been really weird today. Like, Adrian reporting that he was out there, but then there was video, but nobody has the video, and the whole thing is just very like it's all very like it's very cagey.
Well, so they didn't have practice today. Traveling back, I'm sure they traveled back last night, or maybe they did this morning. But no official practice today. So we won't be able to talk to Coach until tomorrow. But it did sound like he was out there taking shots, skating with Sean Allaire, skills coach. So definitely a positive. I don't doubt that he was out there, but the whole no video thing was a little weird, but I mean, either way, the fact that he's out there shooting, handling pucks, that is a positive sign. I saw a couple of the questions, that people were sending in for the show, like, well, what kind of happened? I thought the concern level was high, and I was wanting to talk about this last night, but I did want to wait till we got a little bit more information on Nate. But there was something a couple weeks ago. It actually may have even been the Landeskog thing, where Jared Bednar described the concern level as high. Like, look, when any one of your guys gets hurt and is going to miss any reasonable amount of time, or any amount of time, your concern level is high. You don't know exactly what it is. You're concerned about, are they going to get in there and find something else? I've kind of been of the opinion for the last 24 hours that this is all not precautionary, but just being overly cautious.
I do think it is interesting when you compare how they're handling this MacKinnon situation compared to the Landeskog one, right? MacKinnon, the concern level is high. There's no solid details. It's kind of murky. With Landeskog, was like, yep, he's getting knee surgery. He's out exactly 6 weeks. He'll be back for the playoffs. Moving on. So it doesn't feel certainly as concrete. And honestly, I think that's probably a good sign for MacKinnon's health.
Look, I mean, he finished that game. He stayed with the team overnight, so that meant that he woke up the next day and was like, this is kind of hurting. They sent him back. There's no point, there's no good reason not to.
It was funny to watch everybody split themselves yesterday into the factions of what does it mean to send a player back early. Because for me, I'm always just like, I think that it just means that they need to get more information about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because it turns out that whatever hotel they're staying at doesn't have an MRI machine or, an X-ray machine, like whatever they're after, right?
Right.
And it's just like, instead of just going to the hospital, like just go back to Denver, go use the team facilities, see what you got to do, and then go from there. He could be in the lineup tomorrow. I don't think he will be, but he could be in the lineup tomorrow. We may not, he has to lose in round one. He doesn't play another game for them this season. We just don't, there's no clarity. So.
Either things could be true. I will say I would be shocked if Nathan MacKinnon isn't playing in game one of the playoffs.
Yeah,
unless he broke his entire arm up off of his body, that dude will be playing for the playoffs. So anything is possible, but would be very surprised if MacKinnon missed playoff games based on this injury.
I was going to say, you just go back, whatever that was, a month, maybe a little bit more than that, when he sat out the game in Detroit. And again, it was one of those things where he woke up, something was feeling a little tight, a little sore. So I was like, cool, take the night off. We don't need you going out there and aggravating anything, potentially making something worse when, yeah, we're concerned with winning games right now. We're playing to win every night, but we really want to win games in 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Why wouldn't you send him home and give him a day off?
Like you hit 100 points last night. I would say, I think if they get 10 more points this season, they're probably safe for winning the division.
Yeah,
because I think 110 points puts them clear of whatever Minnesota would be able to get to. They're at 86 right now, so I don't think 100 is going to get to it, but I think 110 would probably be. So you just don't need to push it. Like, they really don't need to push super hard here. They have such a lead in both the division and the conference. 14 points in division and 12 points in conference. There's no need to rush.
For sure. Definitely the Abs can afford to.
And hey, if he comes back for Saturday for the home and home against Pittsburgh, great. That's awesome.
Yep. Obviously, if he's ready to play, the Avs will happily take him. Next question, completely unhockey related, and I'm not sure. I know AJ knows what these are. I don't know if we ever talked about it with Jesse. What is your opinion of all dressed chips?
I have some right here.
I actually have only had them once. I remember them being good. I've talked about them a bunch. Buddy who lives in Toronto. Ketchup chips and all dressed are like all this fucking dude talks about. So I remember having them once and they were good. The way AJ's nodding along and what I know my buddy Harrison says, I'm going to go ahead and vote thumbs up on all dressed.
They have all dressed. They make all dressed chips in the United States now. So
I think I saw that, yeah.
But they're not easy to find. Like,
you mean Walmart?
Yeah, I don't go to Walmart. I go to Target. That's my local grocer, and they don't have any all dressed chips.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, man.
Kings, yeah.
Your new place. You still gonna hit up Target?
Oh, that's true. I don't know where I don't know what the local grocer is for my new place. I'll have to look.
Whoa. All dressed chicken nuggets?
Yeah.
Isn't that just like ketchup on chicken nuggets?
No.
Basic. I can't say I've ever had all dressed chicken nuggets for sure.
I haven't either. I don't know. I like monstrosity, like food concoctions, so I would definitely try it. But
yeah, bro, that maple syrup Pepsi that you guys were talking about on Twitter last week,
I would try it once.
All dressed double down, is that what we're going for here?
Yeah, bring back double down. That thing was a true monstrosity.
The KFC.
Yeah.
Yeah,
with the chicken
instead of bread.
As the buns. I never tried it.
It was greasy as hell.
I remember people saying that it was surprisingly good. Like
it was like tolerable.
Yeah, for what? For the buns being chicken patties, that it was like actually pretty good.
All right. One of the most popular questions we got asked for today's show was about the first round of the playoffs. Both, who do you think is the best matchup for the Avs? And two, which matchup do you think the NHL wants the most for the Avs in the first round?
That second one's a good question.
Oh, which one does the NHL want? It wants Vegas to get fully healthy, sneak into the last spot, and run back Colorado Vegas. Yeah. Because everybody in the league is they're gonna be Panthers fans that are like, yeah, okay, I'm not watching them. They're gonna crush their first round series, and then I'll go watch Colorado Vegas. Like, that's everybody would want to watch that series because you're fascinated to know. Like, you've got like the $90 million roster, right? Like they successfully navigated the regular season waters. The idea would be that they are then fully healthy. All their guys come back. They successfully circumvented the cap. It was all very touch and go for the last month of the season, but it worked. And then you have Colorado who, hey, they beat Colorado. The Avs are 0-2 against Pete DeBoer in playoff series. And who knows, right? A fully healthy Vegas roster. I think that's what the NHL wants. I think the NHL would kill for that.
Is there no consideration for one running back the Dallas series outside of the bubble?
I think the only people who want Dallas to make the postseason are Dallas fans.
And two, MacKinnon versus McDavid round one.
I don't think that they would want that, because I think that would stop the Battle of Alberta in round 2 that we're on track for right now.
True.
And I think a round 2 Battle of Alberta would be, give me that shit. I would stop what I'm doing to watch that series 100%, knowing full well that if Colorado gets over its second round woes and gets the winner of that series in the conference finals, they're going to crush whoever that is.
I saw someone saying the other day, because it was the anniversary of the Avs Red Wings brawl in Detroit, and someone had quote tweeted it, and they were like, "There's no teams in the NHL or pro sports that hate each other the way these two teams do." Someone was like, "Are you kidding? Edmonton and Calgary, definitely." It's like there was actual real blood, but I mean, like I don't think any rivalry in sports will match that Avs Red Wings one again, just like the sheer level of violence, actual violence. But
I wrote about it in my Byram piece.
Nice.
Which has not obviously run yet because he's not back.
Right.
But I wrote one. It's just sitting on the shelf.
Well, I don't think we'll ever see that type of rivalry again in sports. I mean, them getting a Battle of Alberta round 1, that's what this entire playoff format was supposed to be about, right? Like the interdivision rivalries and, teams that you play all year knock each other out. Like, that's what the league wants. That's what you'd love to see. Two teams that have a history of not liking each other, play each other all year long, duking it out. So, yeah, I think they want to keep that in the Pacific.
Low key, something that's not gotten talked about a lot yet because it still has a handful of things that would have to go right here. But St. Louis not playing very well and has, I believe, 10 road games to finish their season versus just 7 home games. And they haven't played very well recently. And they are 15, 11, and 5 on the road. So St. Louis having a road-heavy schedule to finish the season. If they slide back to Wild Card 2 and we get Colorado, St. Louis again.
Run back the sweep.
And David Perron gets to play this time. Like, no asterisks, right? No nonsense. Like, everybody's healthy. And Ville Husso's the goaltender in that series. Like, I'm
feeling pretty good.
Very here for that series. Yeah. That way, Blues fans, because like we do dismiss St. Louis as a serious threat, right? But
mostly
after last year, there have been David Perron didn't play, and I'm like, yeah, please let us do this again, so we can see if David Perron is the difference between a sweep and
5 games.
Yeah, the outcome changing at all.
Okay.
Vegas has an easy schedule for the next 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, they have one of the
except they only play 5 home games.
Well, so it's really weird. They played 2 straight games at Seattle. Tonight and Friday are both Vegas at Seattle. Then they've got a home and home with Vancouver, Arizona, Vancouver, and then they have Calgary, Edmonton, New Jersey. And then the rest of the way, it's kind of like whatever.
Like, it's not a very challenging schedule in terms of teams, but they have 5 home games.
Yeah. Well, and this is the month where a lot of their games in hand, like they play Seattle tonight and Friday, and then they have one night off at Vancouver. Then after that, for like a week and a half, it's 2 nights in between every game. Like this is where they're just going to be sitting, watching the results of other games,
hoping Dallas loses.
Right.
That's what happens when you have a handful of games played on everybody.
So like they've got an easy schedule, but like they have to have these next 2 games at Seattle. If they drop even one of those, it gets, I mean, an already uphill climb gets almost impossible.
So can we talk about Dallas real quick here?
Yeah.
I know that we're not we have a lot of, we're going to be talking about this
For
nonstop
weeks.
over the
Yeah.
next month. And basically every off day is going to be this conversation. But how do you guys feel about a Dallas, Colorado again? Like,
I don't think it's close. Assuming
I mean,
the Avs are relatively healthy.
But so Heiskanen is back, and
Even
like,
at full power,
they're-
Dallas just doesn't scare me this year.
even with Joe Pavelski
Even-
averaging 3 points per game against the Avs.
Yeah, even with superhero Joe Pavelski, if the Avs have an actual goaltender in net, I think they win that series in 5 or 6.
Yeah, Dallas is just such a weird team to me. Again, like you just look at the way their season is gone. Like we've talked about it all year. They can only do things in like clumps. They win 3 in a row and they lose 5. Then they win 4 and then they lose 3. And like it's just their core is really starting to age out. Like Joe Pavelski doing this in his age 37, 38 season. Like it's pretty crazy. Robertson's a good player, but Jamie Benn isn't who he was. Tyler Seguin isn't who he was.
Tyler Seguin, I've watched a decent amount of Dallas recently, and Tyler Seguin looks like somebody stole all of his confidence.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's something physically wrong where he's trying to protect himself, but he is he does not look like Tyler Seguin was dynamic and this close to being a top 5 center in the NHL. He had an elite shot. He was a great playmaker. Tyler Seguin was everything. And now I watch Tyler Seguin and I'm like, what the hell is this? Who is this guy? He looks awful. And he looks like he has no confidence in any decision that he makes or that he can make whatever play he's trying to make. He looks awful. And on paper, I'm like, oh man, a team with Robertson and Bratchelov and Ben and Seguin, and you remove penalties from the conversation, except for when convenient for the refs, and you get into a really physical series where Jake Ottinger just plays great. I could talk myself into them being a problem, but then I watch Seguin play and I watch Ben and I'm just like, who are these guys? These guys are shells of their former selves. And Ben is into his 30s and he's been slowly physically deteriorating for a little bit. So I'm not surprised there. That's fine. But Rupe Hintz and Guryanov and Robertson, are those guys enough? Is Vlad Namestnikov enough?
Well, and so that's my thing, right? And I see a bunch of people in the chat talking about, oh, that team always scares me. It always makes me a little nervous. And I think that's also kind of the point that you're driving at. Just those games are always just a little
weird, man. Outside of the one where the Avs rolled into Dallas, shut them out, and didn't think about there was no bones about that game. They rolled in, beat up Dallas, shut them out, and walked out with the easiest 2 points of the year. All of their other games have been weird.
Well, and so I go back to last year's series against St. Louis, right? Because that was kind of the same feel that a lot of people had. Was it's oh man, we feel like the Avs are better, but these games with St. Louis always go a certain way. But that's part of the reason why I love the NHL playoffs, and the NBA is the same way. You have to win 4. And when you have teams like this, in my opinion, this year's Dallas team, last year's St. Louis team, they're good teams. They're good teams with good players, and goaltenders that can play well. But when you've got to do that 4 times across 7 days against, again, an Avs team that I think we all agree is just better than Dallas this year.
Well, and
It's
we
hard
talk about the postseason too, and I think that we're going to see, because we've talked about this year, when the Avs have turned it up and played their best games, they've lost twice.
Yep.
In regulation, that goofy bounce that beat them in Carolina, and overtime at home against Calgary the first time they played.
Yep.
Where they played very good games and lost. And I guess maybe you could count that Dallas game where Jake Ottinger rolled into Denver and they stole that win with the Avs out shooting them like 42-17 or whatever. But that was a different kind. That was like you got goalied.
Well, so Dallas is interesting too because of teams in the playoff picture. They are the worst road team by a lot. They are 500 on the road, 16-16-2 compared to 21-9-1 at home. So I've never been a big believer in home ice advantage, but against that team.
Well, and hockey's, the NHL is one of the leagues where, because for the most part, Rudo, I agree with that sentiment a little bit more, that home ice is becoming less and less important. But 2 things that tells you: one, Dallas really relies on the matchup game. They need their matchups to be really successful. And 2, the one area where I do still believe a little bit in the home ice is when you get into those game 7s, those series clinching games, it is nice to be in your own arena, in front of your own fans and stuff like that. But yeah, teams that rely that heavily on the matchup and struggle when they don't get it, big red flag.
I would also say I don't think that 16-6-2 on the road, but Vegas is 16-5-1. St. Louis is 15-11-5. Edmonton is 16-13-5. If you actually add up wins and losses, all of these teams have losing records or are 500 on the road. And then you even get into Minnesota, 17-13-3. Nashville's 18-13-4. Winnipeg is 13-12-8. And Vancouver 18-14-4. None of these teams are good road teams. The best road teams in the conference are Colorado at 21-10-3 and Calgary at 19-11-2. Well, LA is 18-9-5. I'll give them credit too. But LA balances it by being bad at home. So
yeah. I'm just saying, but when we're talking home ice and all that, Colorado's going to have that big advantage, where the Avs, by the way, are 26-4-3 in Ball Arena. I just don't know that I put a lot of stock into overtime losses in the regular season, just because it is 3-on-3.
Yeah, I look at it and I just say those are just games that they lost. Because I will add the losses in the OTLs and I'll just say, okay, they played X number of road games. How many did they actually walk out with wins? And that's how I look at it.
Fair enough. If you want to walk out of the liquor store with a win, go get yourself some Breck Brew. Jump on it. You can also get 8 different kinds on tap down at the D on that. And use the Breck Beer Locator online. If you're in the States, they have Breck Brew near you. I, of course, drink the Avalanche Amber Ale. Highly recommend. It's one of my favorites. But they have a bunch of different flavors that you can try and get, literally dozens, whether you like IPAs or lighter beers, or if you like reds. They got something for everybody. Trust me. Go check out Breck Brew today. And once you get your 6-pack of Breck Brew, you can kick back on your couch and watch on Avaca TV. For just $25 a month, they'll send you a receiver. You can watch on your TV just like it used to be back when they were actually on television properly. Or if you have DirecTV, it's a significantly cheaper option. You do need an internet connection, but you just hook it right up to your TV, turn it on with the remote. You're good to go. Watching your Avs, your Nuggets on altitude, or if you like the Rockies, they'll have AT&T Sports Network. They also have some national channels. If you're a football fan, things like that. So check out Avaca TV today. They're also our sponsor of the Party Bus on April 16th. I believe we just sold out the first bus. You'll have to double check. But I believe the first bus is entirely full. So keep your eyes peeled for a secondary bus or possibly tickets for people that already have tickets to the game. Eventually, we'll release the option to just ride the bus with us. Anyway, go over to DNVR Locker for more information on the party bus. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. One of the biggest questions we got was realistic expectations for the playoffs. What is success? What is a disappointment this year for the Avs? Is conference finals, is that minimum for success, or is this anything less than a cup is a failure?
I don't like questions like this because you never know what's going to happen. Because I mean, you look at the series against Dallas, and you're like,
if the Avs go into the playoffs and they have 8 injuries or something, it's a different story for sure.
Yeah, and that's where I think it's like, yeah, that's a missed opportunity, but that's as much an opportunity taken away from them as it is like missed, right? And so I don't like questions like that. I think if they're relatively healthy and they get beat straight up, like I look at Vegas last year and I just say, look, they just got beat. Yeah. There's a huge caveat that Nazem Kadri didn't play 1 minute in that series. And we don't talk about it much. We don't know the level of impact it would have had on any of the series. We're always just guessing. But if they get the Avs as constructed, they just got beat, right? Like they just got beat in that series. And if that happens, if anybody out west just beats them in a best of 7, it's a huge disappointment. It's a huge disappointment.
Yeah, certainly out west. I think any cup finals, anything can happen.
Yeah, and like you get to a cup final, like somebody was tweeting at me and was like, "Oh, if the Avs lose to the Panthers and Claude Giroux in the cup finals, it'll be a disaster." And I'm like, "Really? If the Avs get to the cup finals and lose to that Florida roster, it'll be a disaster." I was
hard to call it a disaster.
I'm not gonna say I'm gonna feel good about it, but I'm also gonna be like, that has the potential to be an all-time great cup finals. And somebody has to lose that. Like somebody's gonna lose, and that would suck. But it's like, I think if they just get beat by a team out west, because this year the gap between them and everybody else is just too big. And I think the gap is a little artificial because Colorado had an all-time great month in January. And that's where they did their work. You know, it was mentioned on the broadcast last night that the Avs had 31 points that month. The Flames had 10. Like that's a 21-point lead that they put on the Flames in 1 month.
Yeah.
And I just I think the lead that they have is a little artificial, but when you look at them and you look at how they've played, you look at who they've beaten, and you look at how their record against all the teams out west, you're like, they've lost a couple against Nashville, and 2 of those have really big asterisks next to them. The Dallas games don't. Like, they just lost those games. But other than that, like, they've been dominant against the Pacific Division, and they've kicked the shit out of the Central. Outside of, I think, 4 of their 5 regulation losses have been it's been 2 to Dallas, and 1 of those was to Nashville.
Yep.
In that goofy 15-person game.
Yep.
Well, look, the goal every year for every team is to win a cup. For some, it's more realistic than others, but like Montreal showed everyone last year. And again, weird circumstances with the divisions and stuff like that, sure. But like every team comes into the season saying, we want to win a Stanley Cup this year. If we don't, we'll be disappointed. And now your levels of disappointment are to varying degrees, right? Like if you're the Buffalo Sabres, like, yeah, we'd love to win the Stanley Cup this year. But realistically, we know that's probably not going to happen. So while it'll be a bummer to not win, we're just hoping to get near the playoffs, right? Like, so there's varying levels of degree, but everyone wants to win a championship. you play sports to win, right? The Avs are at the point where they are expecting, that is a realistic goal for them. We want to win a Stanley Cup this year, and we think we are realistically capable of doing it. So from their perspective, if you're Joe Sakic, Jared Bednar, or any of the players, if you don't win a Stanley Cup, yes, it is considered a disappointment, major disappointment. But from our standpoint, and AJ, you and I, the first time I had any part in covering this team was the 48-point year. So like we're sitting here saying, okay, you still have it. You've come such a far way in such a relatively short amount of time. The bulk of your team, while you have some UFA decisions to make, the bulk of your team, the bulk of your core is locked up long-term. We're all pretty damn confident Nathan MacKinnon's going to get done as soon as it can. And that core is still like Gabe Landeskog's the old man at 28, 29. And so it's like you still have a legitimate window here. So as much as I hate getting caught up in the second round conversation, yes, this group need to get past that. They need to break through that second round barrier. But I really do think that there is a lack of appreciation from fans at just how damn hard it is to win. 31 teams will be disappointed with the result of this season. 31 of 32. That is as close to 100% as you can get of teams will be disappointed with the outcome. You want to be the one team that's not. It is very difficult to do.
30 teams, because one of them's going to win the Stanley Cup and one of them's going to get Shane Wright. So 30 teams will be disappointed.
Okay, yeah. No, great point. But so still, you're trying to avoid being one of 30. It's a really tough thing to do. AJ, you make a great point. Like, you lose in the Cup Finals to Florida, to Tampa. Those are very, very good teams that are very difficult to beat.
Yeah, I mean, if you roll in there and you lose the Cup Finals to Igor Shesterkin and an all-time great goaltending run, like, you're going to feel bad.
Right.
You're going to feel like it's a missed opportunity. But otherwise, like, you get one of those teams. Like, and the weird thing about the East this year is there a single one of those teams that would get to the Cup Finals and you would be surprised by? Because I think the only two teams that I absolutely just do not believe in out East are Washington and the Rangers.
Oh, see, the Rangers are my only one that I would genuinely be surprised if they got to the Cup Final. And I guess Washington, because the goaltending is
exactly, and it's like
won't allow me to believe Toronto can do it, but
and like with Toronto, it's again the same conversation as Washington, where you're like, if the goaltending comes together, the rest of the pieces are there for that team to absolutely go on a good run. But it all has to kind of come together, and you're talking through almost 70 games. It just hasn't on a consistent basis here. And somebody just asked, do we really believe in Darcy Kemper? I mean, why wouldn't you at this point? Like, Darcy Kemper, I was going through his numbers. He's put up, at this point in his career, this is the second best season that he's ever had in the NHL, with a chance for it to be the best. And he's basically had the third best season among starting goaltenders in the league. He's been great.
Yep.
So I don't like, he's been great, and Kemper has been since December 1st just percentage points worse than Shesterkin.
I think part of the conflation here for fans that they get wrong is they've put themselves in the cup or bust vehicle, when really, like Jesse was talking about, this is cup or try again next year for the Avs still.
Yeah, they're exactly where Tampa Bay was. You remember Tampa Bay went to the Cup Finals in 2015.
Yep.
And then went and had an all-time great season in 2018-19.
Yep.
And then it took them
another year to
get
over the hump.
It took them going into the Edmonton bubble. And like, that was a team that got two kind of freebies in the finals with Dallas and Montreal. Like their Cup Finals was, and you get the Islanders in the conference finals that pushed them both years, but then they get into the conference finals, and this is going to be a way more competitive East field than I think there has been in a while. And I'm really curious how Tampa holds up to that, but out west it's not. Like Colorado's biggest test should be the Cup Finals.
So and I completely agree with what AJ just said there, and like I see this comment here from Zach, and I agree with that the first part of that. You know, in terms of this season, yeah, it's cup or bust for sure.
Yeah.
But again, realistically, every team that makes the playoffs, it's cup or bust. You're not like the goal for any of these teams isn't get into the playoffs. That's not what these teams are about. It's get into the playoffs so that you have a shot to win the Stanley Cup. So you earn the opportunity to do that. Again, the Minnesota Wild, I don't think a lot of people would describe them as cup or bust, but they gave up assets for a goaltender in a team that is desperately going to need assets over the next couple of years and young players coming in. Calgary made 2 moves to bring in players at the deadline. All of these teams that are destined for the playoffs, it's cup or bust. The Edmonton Oilers, I know we all kind of shake our head because it would be really, really hard for them to actually pull a Connor McDavid trade, but you want to keep Connor McDavid happy. You want to keep that conversation as far away from your team as possible. It's cup or bust for them.
They like their Stanley Cup might be winning round 1. Like Edmonton getting out of round 1 would do a lot to assuage the anger in that market.
For sure.
Because like they are the beneficiary of a horrible division. And if they get in and they lose in round 1 to the LA Kings, which is right now where they would be, that I think that's as bad as them not getting in at all.
Yeah.
And if they get in and they get to round 2 and they lose to Calgary, say, in the Battle of Alberta, it'll hurt. But I think that's a growing pain that they could build on. And that's where I think the perception is different. Like LA is just happy to be here. Edmonton is just trying to win a round to keep the pitchforks at bay. I think if you're Calgary, you're looking at this and you're saying you got to capitalize on this because they've got major money problems. Colorado, major money problems. Those are the 2 teams out west that are really, 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 really feeling it. I would say there's some pressure on St. Louis just because they're a little they're like Kyrou and Thomas have helped, but a lot of their guys, a lot of their horses are starting to tick into the 30 range. And you start to wonder how much longer. Nashville, you start to wonder how much longer. Like, Nashville is fascinating to me because Philip Forsberg is going to score 40 goals. Matt Duchene has lived up to every inch of that contract for the first time in his life. And UC Saros has been a top 7 goaltender this year, and Roman Josi might win the Norris. At all 3 levels, all of their stars have maxed out, and they're competing for a wild card. Like,
and
if they don't do anything this year, what does that franchise do? Just continue to lose in the first round for the next several years? Yeah. So I think there's some pressure there. But out west, it's like Colorado and it's Calgary. Those are the 2 teams that are like, we have to push for the cup now.
And see, I totally agree. And I guess I'm more of speaking in the context of coaches and players, all of those guys, once you get up into management, ownership, AJ, like you're totally right. Like, Edmonton's ownership and their front office, like, we want to win, but for the love of God, give us a series win. Like, that is what we need. Like you said, to hold off the pitchforks and to keep some of your players feeling like things are going in a positive direction. But all of these coaches, all of these players, once they get to the playoffs, they're not concerned with moral victories. They all were here to win. We're here to beat every team along the way and win the Stanley Cup. And so it's such an interesting conversation because it's cup or bust is kind of like every team's mentality. But then when you take a step back, AJ, you're 100% right. There is context to all of that stuff. There's certain teams with more realistic expectations than others, but the Avs, they want to win a cup this year. They've pushed all their chips to the middle for this year, but and again, we're not at the point of looking down the road, looking into the future, but it should hopefully be a little bit of like solace to fans that even if the Avs win this year, their window is still just really starting to open. I think that 2015 Lightning good comparable.
Love the discourse. We do have a lot of more questions to get to, though. Next one, Jesse, you and I talked about this during the game the other night. With a relatively healthy lineup, who are the Avs scratches? On the forward side, it's between Logan O'Connor, Nick Aube-Kubel, probably Darren Helm. Two of those three are probably your scratches, assuming Sturm and Cogliano are in. You could maybe have Cogliano in that conversation of a scratch too.
Yeah, so I mean, you're going to end up with two of Helm, Cogliano, Aube-Kubel, and LOC scratched for every game at full health.
Yep.
I'm also probably going to put McDermott as a forward. Just because at fully healthy, you've already got 8D even without him.
Yeah.
And if you are needing to get him into a game, it's a lot easier to hide your 12th forward than it is your 6th defenseman. So, I mean, I've got it as LOC and Aube-Kubel in game one. But, I mean, that could very easily be Helm and LOC, Cogliano and Aube-Kubel. I asked Bednar, do you know who you want there, or is this all people have to earn it? And he was very, very clear on the forward and defenseman side. The people who are playing, the players who are playing in the playoffs, are the guys who earn it. And so I think that's why we've seen Darren Helm pick up his play in the last 2 weeks. All those guys understand I'm playing in the playoffs if I'm one of the 12 best skaters.
Okay.
Not because my contract status, not because I'm a veteran. It's because I've earned this spot in the lineup. So it's going to be interesting. Right
now, I would confidently say Knack is probably scratched right now.
I would confidently say that.
The other spot I think is very much up for grabs. I think it could be LOC. I think it could be Helm. I really do think it could even be Cogliano. The only one I think they're not sitting is Sturm because he plays center.
I don't think it's going to be Cogliano. Just the way he started, I think they're going to.
I know he's played well. I totally understand that.
And like realistically, the timeline involved here of when Landy comes back is going to give like. If
There's
MacKinnon
still runway for sure, yeah.
Yeah, if MacKinnon is good, let's say MacKinnon plays Saturday. Like tomorrow night they against San Jose, they're just like, fuck it. And he doesn't play and it's whatever, right? But Saturday comes and it's the first time that they have Cogliano and Lehkonen in the lineup and MacKinnon drops in.
That squeezes Knack out.
Yeah, I think Knack is first cut, and then after that, my next cut is Helm.
Well, and then the other thing that Bednar made sure to point out was he said, like, look, again, this is all hypothetical that the Avs are fully healthy, all 15 forwards available. He made the point of like, and it's not going to be any set, these two guys that are sitting. If the luxury that we have is if someone has a bad couple of games, we've got someone that we feel we can plug in. If someone gets a little dinged up, we can give them a night off. If there's a matchup that we like a little bit better in that bottom six, we can do that. So, like, I think these last, 15 games now? You're going to see, you hope, some pretty good play out of that bottom six because those guys are all playing for jobs now. But then once we get into the playoffs, you've got to keep that up. if Darren Helm gets to is in the lineup game 1, series 1, he's going to have to play every night to keep earning that spot in the lineup. And I think that's really a great thing.
If a dude has a like a brutal night, you're not wasting time. You're pulling that dude out of the lineup and you're like, okay, we're going to throw Knack in there. And we're going to let him go and do it with you. I mean, look at the spark that LOC provided in that Dallas series halfway through it.
Yeah.
Like, he came in and fresh legs, and it was like, you're gonna want that in a series at some point. Where you're like, it's, this guy's maybe a little bit worn down. Knack or Helm haven't played in a week or two. They're fresh. They're ready to go. The battery is charged. They're going to go out there and they're going to run into somebody.
Right. And look, I want to apologize in advance and ask for forgiveness. Yoel Kiviranta comes in game 7. It's the first game that he's played. I'm sorry. But it is just kind of like what you're saying. It was fresh legs. It's that dude is a bit part player, but he had fresh legs in game 7 and it made a difference. And that's what the Avs are hopefully going to have, except it's not going to be a Yoel Kiviranta. It's going to be a guy who's played the entire year as an NHL regular. And it's a huge luxury to have. Again, I apologize.
It's going to help. It's definitely going to help. And then, like, obviously, if you have an injury, if you have like a top 6 injury, it's not great. Those guys aren't going to do it for you. But I do wonder if you get better out of Comfer once he is more role appropriate.
Sure.
In a third line job.
Well, I actually love the idea. Sorry, Rudo. I love the idea of the Lehkonen, Newhook, Comfer.
Yeah, me too.
It's a really good fit for everybody.
I just the complementary skills involved, the skating of all three of them. You have the tenacity. I mean, Newhook has been so much better defensively than we could have ever expected him to be. I mean, the fact that they gave him the 2C job last night was seriously like a ringing endorsement of his work as a center this year from Bettner. Because he up until this point, he had been putting Ranton in there and keeping Newhook down or moving him to the wing, and they gave him that 2C job, and that speaks to and I thought he did fine with it. I thought he was okay. He had some he had some moments again. Like Alex Newhook has a couple of moments every game where you're just like, girl,
kid's gonna be so good in a couple of years. This kind of has answered our next question too. Given the forward depth, we didn't really talk about the defense, but we've talked about it before. We don't have to get into it. It seems hard to see the Avs really getting any use out of any black aces this year.
Especially because the Eagles could be on a postseason run of their own. We don't really know how deep that's going to be. Yeah, we don't really know. But I do think that it would take a number of injuries, especially with McDermott's forward defenseman versatility. Yeah, you're probably talking 3 or 4 injuries to each, to either one of those.
Both sides.
Till you get to an Eagle.
And again, I really do. I think that's intentional. Nothing against, those guys that they would probably call up in those situations. Kaut, Sherwood, Sakura, but Maltsev. Yes, I'm sorry. But again, like when you get hopefully into rounds 2 and 3, if you need guys coming in, you don't want to be asking guys to be getting their first taste of NHL playoff action when the stakes are as high as they are. You want guys who are going to come in, feel comfortable being there, understand their role, have some degree of chemistry with guys that they're out there on the ice with. So I think the way that they've loaded up was almost kind of intentional so that they weren't having to dip into that black ace pool. Again, not that those aren't good players, very skilled, picking at.
I mean, you can ask the legitimate question of when was the last time a black ace had a real impact on a deep playoff run? Like, you can be
Alex
honest here.
last year count?
No, not really, because he wasn't really like
I get it. They threw him in for a couple games, and he scored a cool goal, but whatever.
And like, he played in their playoff run. Like, he doesn't really count. Sampo Ranta doesn't really count.
I mean, yeah, Sampo wasn't impactful, full stop.
But like, I mean, maybe negative.
Yeah, fair.
But they're deeper in that way this year with experienced guys that are comfortable with expectations and that and the like. So cool.
Okay, we are brought to you by Lightshade. You can go over there and get all of your CBD and THC needs at any of their 11 locations in the Denver metro area, including Ripple, which is a fast-acting dissolvable, proven to hit 2 times faster than your leading gummy. You can put it in just about anything, and it'll start absorbing within 10 minutes, so you get a consistent experience every single time. Or if you don't want to bake some brownies with it or anything, you can use their Rip Sticks, pour it directly on your tongue, and get the THC that you're looking for. So go check out Ripple over at Lightshade. Get 25% off your order when you use code DNVR at checkout. You can shop online at lightshade.com for pickup, or of course visit any of the 11 Lightshade locations near you. And head on over to DraftKings and use that DNVR code too. When you sign up for a new account with the DNVR code at DraftKings, there's still time to get in on March Madness. Pick the winner of any game that is left. You can bet $5 to win $200 in free bets with DraftKings through the March Madness tournament. Then you can take that $200 and turn around and is it really cup or bust for the Avs? Put your money where your mouth is. Pick the Avs to win the cup. I don't even know what the Avs odds are right now, but I'm sure they're still relatively good. It's not even the playoffs yet. So go over there. You can bet on whatever you want, whether it be hockey, basketball, baseball, badminton, bowling, lawn bowling, you name it. You can bet on it with DraftKings. Check them out today. Use that DNVR code. It must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Other terms, restrictions, and conditions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And of course, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by that DraftKings Sportsbook. The title question of the day: what's wrong with the Avs at 5-on-5? They've only had one 5-on-5 goal in their last 6 periods. Outside of that Philly game where they kind of went off, there's been a lack of 5-on-5 scoring from this team as late. They've been getting by on special teams for the most part. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not that worried about it, but what's your guys' take on this?
The ebbs and flows.
Yeah, we expect, especially when a team has played as well as the Avs have this year, like you can forget that this isn't like scripted theater where it's like there is just ebbs and flows to the way that things go. And sometimes things are clicking great. Sometimes they're not. That sucks. The important thing is that they're finding ways to win games.
Yeah.
I just can't be bothered by that.
Like, you also keep in mind that like Gabe Landeskog is a legit, very good play driver of a forward for you. He does so many good things all over the ice for you that his loss is meaningful. It's like Valentushkin has been as good as any of us could have hoped filling in on that top line. And you still see the gap.
Yeah.
You still see it on almost a nightly basis where you're like, Landy would have made that play.
Yep.
And it's funny because we talk about Landy as the bum on that line. Like, we talk about him as like, he's not as naturally gifted talent-wise as Rantanen and MacKinnon are, who are two of the most like physically gifted, just raw talent-wise, two of the most talented, just raw talent players in the entire world. And there's still a gap to Landy, and there's still a gap to Nichushkin. And you see that. Like, you see the difference that it makes. And last night, like, Nichushkin scores 2 great goals by being smart and just getting it done, right? Like, a great deflection, and then he goes to the front of that, puts a stick down, and Mikko makes an unbelievable play. Like the shot pass lands perfectly on his stick, and he doesn't flub it. It's dope. Great hockey. But it's more hockey smarts that have gotten Nichushkin to where he has succeeded on that line than a lot of like, oh my God, the skill, right?
Actual
the talent.
out-talenting people, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that you can see what they're missing in a guy like Landeskog, who brings a lot of it at 5-on-5. You can see what they're missing, and hasn't been talked about a lot, but you're really seeing no Sam Girard, no Bowen Byram on the back end. And how aggressive, like we talk, the Avs defense. This is the highest scoring Avs defense that they've had that in franchise history. Well, it's not coming from guys like Jack Johnson and Josh Manson and even Eric Johnson Eric Johnson's like the bridge between your offensive guys that you expect production from and your offensive black holes that you're just like, just hit people, please. Like just hit people and play great defense and kill penalties. But I think you're seeing like with no Sam Girard driving play, with no Bowen Byram back there, you're just seeing like offensively they're not as dynamic all throughout the lineup as they have been because they're just some of their play drivers are just not there anymore. They're just physically not there. And Sam Girard greatly struggled, but you saw on a nightly basis his expected goals for was still being driven in the right direction. He was still helping to create. He was still moving pucks better than these other guys are capable of at this point in their careers. Even the compromised version of Sam Girard.
I mean, for the record, Sam Girard greatly struggling is a 40-point pace,
right?
In a full season, like
right. So like Sam, like they get Sam Girard back, they get Bowen Byram back, dude. They're gonna go to a completely different place.
Yep.
Their play driving, their defense gets better. Their play driving changes. It completely changes.
Yep. We'll lift the curtain a little bit to the offseason here. We don't have to go too deep into this, but we did have this conversation the other day. I think it was off air. Val Nichushkin. And secondarily, Darcy Kemper, and maybe tertiary, if we want to get into it, Andre Burakovsky. What are their contracts looking like? I know we had a long conversation where we settled somewhere around 5 for Val Nichushkin.
Yeah. I would kind of stand by that. 4 years, 5 years, if that gets it done at anywhere. I think you and I agreed, Rudo. I would love 4.5.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, as good as he's been this year, and what encourages you about Val Nichushkin is that it wasn't just like, yeah, he was a decent fourth line guy the last couple of years, and now he's having this breakout. You're gonna have to pay him. Like, the dude has gotten incrementally better. I mean, not even every year, like every 20 games, I feel like since he arrived in Colorado, it's been like, wow, there's a nice step. Wow, he's doing way more. Wow, he's really contributing more than he was before. He just keeps kind of ramping up. He seems like he's getting more comfortable. This system seems like a great fit for him and what he does. So you hope that he likes to fit just as much as everyone else. And yeah, $5 million, I think you're comfortable with, and saying, cool, there's a second line winger for us for the next however many years.
Okay. AJ, I know you were the guy pushing for maybe a little bit higher than 5.
Well, I was saying if he like pounded the table for it, and I was saying if you had to go to 5.5 or lose the player, would you do it? That's the conversation that I was having. But I think if you look at the Tom Wilson contract, that's a pretty solid comparable for a guy that gives you he's a 20, basically going to be a 2020 guy right now. Maybe a little more by the end of the year. You would hope a little more by the end of the year. But that's kind of the deal that I think that you use as your barometer is the Tom Wilson contract, and which is at 5.166 or whatever. And I think that that's probably where you come in and you say, okay, that's the deal that we want to use. As we believe that this is who you are. We believe that you're going to be a part of our top six. We believe that you're going to be an impact guy for us every night. I'm all for giving him that money, and I think that his DNA is so important to their success. Just all his all around contributions. We've seen him great on the penalty kill. He's an elite defensive wing. Just good things follow him, and he's one of their few players that really stands out with hockey smarts.
Well, and again, AJ, you just said something there like about him fitting the identity. The dude works his ass off on and off the ice, and that Jared Bednar loves guys who work hard, who don't leave anything out there, who don't take shifts off. I mean, cliche, but like, look, we've seen a couple really good players over the last couple of years kind of work their way out of Colorado's lineup because they don't bring it every night. That's one of his criticisms that he regularly levies against Andre Burakovsky. Make sure you put in the work first. When he stops putting in the work first, the results don't follow. You never have that issue with Val Nichushkin. The dude is always, again, to use Bednar's term, putting in the work first. And that's why I think you're seeing the results that he gets or he's getting this year. So on top of everything that he's done on the ice, I think that's a great call out, AJ. That he just Val Nichushkin's identity fits with who the Avs are really well.
Yep. Kemper, a bit of a hard one to judge. We talked about it before. A playoff performance really could swing his contract a lot of different directions.
Yep.
Burakovsky.
Remember, keep in mind during the regular season last year, Grubauer would put up a good performance or have a great game, and we'd all be like, "Just sign him."
Yep.
And then he goes into the postseason and plays the way that he did, and you're just like,
maybe we don't pay him $6 million.
Yeah, like it gave everybody in Colorado just enough pause that they moved off of that decision. So Kemper's still to be determined, but with his age, I think you've got to be looking at him as more of like a 4-year deal.
Yep.
So, and I think that $6 million number, you're going to be right. You're going to be somewhere right in that range.
Yep.
AJ, I know you don't like their show, but the Spit and Chicklets guys had Hayduk on yesterday. I haven't listened to it, but they just posted a clip where he's talking about how Sean Podine wore his gear for 24 hours after they won the cup. That was legendary. One of my favorite stories from that cup celebration, that skates and everything and just wore his gear for the next 24 hours. So good.
It's disgusting, but hilarious.
Yeah, dude. And like he went out around Denver and like skate guards on and stuff. But like that's a really cool thing. But that dude probably reeked in whatever bars he was getting slammered in.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
After the second bar, he doesn't remember either, probably. So
that, and then the Ray Bourque shaving his beard like in the locker room, like showers. Is another one that always cracked me up.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah, rock it for the superstition, but get rid of it as soon as he didn't need it anymore.
Okay. That was most of the questions from Twitter.
Do we have any like quick hitters that we can burn through real fast?
Yeah, let me find a couple of easy ones. Favorite Mario Kart?
N64.
Agreed.
I mean, the most recent one is the perfect version of Mario Kart.
All right. Should be a couple. What is your favorite discontinued snack?
It was Dunkaroos, and they came back.
Yeah. That was my immediate answer. But then I was like, actually, I've got some Dunkaroos downstairs.
Yeah, they came back. So I no longer have a. I tell you the. What was it? I can't remember what it was called now. It was like the Mountain Dew, like blackout one.
Pitch Black.
Pitch Black. Thank you. Yep, that. I'll go with that because I love that.
This?
Nope.
It was like a little like fruit snack, but it peeled off the cardboard.
Not really.
Nope.
Yeah, no, it was really good. And the snack isn't discontinued, But I hate the fact that Gusher's bags aren't like the matte
They
feel
used
anymore.
to be, yeah.
Yeah, that was a classic snack staple.
Yeah. I think I don't know, chat. What random quick questions do you want answered while I look through the rest of these?
Yeah.
Favorite
Is there any quick
Awesome.
hitters that you guys want answered? Just since we're here and you guys have been hanging out with us, and I don't know about you guys, but I don't have anything else going on the rest of today.
I gotta write power rankings, but that's about it.
Extremely scheduled nap coming up.
I'm gonna go lay in bed and play Paper Mario on the N64.
Hell yeah! I was gonna say, where the fuck are you playing Paper Mario? But
It's on. They
not-
released.
yeah, that's
They released the N64 thing on the Switch now.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's got Paper
It
Mario
emulates
on there.
Basically all of the old.
all right, well, I gotta go. So
P.S. Mario Kart 64 is in there.
shut up.
Yeah, true
Lehkonen
story. Also, the
contract.
new Lehkonen contract. I think you're probably looking at 3 to 4 million, somewhere in there, and you'd want that to probably be 4 or 5 years.
Okay. How worried are y'all about Mac? Not worried.
Yeah, genuinely not worried.
Which comes first, a new guy goal or a new hook goal?
I'm gonna say a new hook goal set up by a new guy.
There we go. Good answer. Who wins Eurovision this year? I haven't watched any Eurovision at all, so
Iceland.
no idea. Iceland. They always send the death metal band, right? Like,
I don't know, man. Anything that I'm allowed to vote Iceland in, I vote Iceland.
Do you let Berkey walk? Depends on what he wants.
Yeah, it depends on what he wants, but I think Andrei Burakovsky is getting significantly underappreciated by the Avalanche fan base on the
I
whole.
agree with that too. His overall
Because-
production this year has been very, very good.
It's great, and if you look at his time in Colorado, his points per 60 is basically top 10 among forwards in that time.
Yep.
Who have played like 1,000 minutes. Like, he's excellent. Okay, like, he's very, very good. And this, like, if he's not scoring, he's not contributing. Like, watch the game last night and tell me that Andrei Burakovsky does not have several important plays on the back check.
Yep.
Like, he's putting in the work, and like, he goes through his times where he completely disappears and it slips on that end. That dude is absolutely going to get $6 million. And if it's not from Colorado, it'll be from somebody else.
Yep.
There's no way that guy does not make a major, major amount of money this
I think he's worth it too.
I think so. Absolutely. The Avs have to prioritize guys, but they can afford any of these guys that they want. They just have to make decisions. The answer is the answer isn't can they afford all of them or can they afford this one guy. They cannot afford to keep all of them, but they can afford to keep the ones that they think that they can keep.
They could, with the given that they're not keeping Kadri, they could maybe get close to keeping all of them.
I think they could, Manson included, if you take Kadri out of there, they can absolutely get close. I did this math last week.
Yep.
So
and Evan, no,
he is getting $6 million. If you think he's not getting $6 million, go and do the homework.
He's got 47 points in 65 games.
I think he'll pretty easily get $6 million.
Yeah.
I actually, if it's not with the Avs, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he got
more than 6. Yeah. I could totally see a team like Buffalo or someone desperate give him 6.5 or 7. Like,
I mean, if you're Arizona and you're about to draft like big time centers, right? In your ideal world, and you have
Shane
all the
Wright
money in
and
the world,
Connor Bedard, let's go.
right? And you've got Clayton Keller hanging out there. So, buddy, I do my homework before I open my mouth. I always know what I'm talking about. That's why I'm on this side of the conversation. So, I don't know what to tell you, fam.
It's a guy who could still very easily get to 20 goals this year, has put up 45-ish points for the last 3 years running now, and will almost certainly break the 50-point barrier this year. As a $6 million player, bud.
Yep. And when you look at the comparable that I always use is the Pavel Buchnevich contract that was signed. Guess what he's making? It's 5.8, and he had an RFA year left. So
close enough.
And their production is almost exactly the same.
Yeah, well, cap is allegedly going to go up $1 million this offseason, also. So we'll see.
That was always the expectation. That they were going to try and get it to go up $1 million. So we'll see.
We will see. All right, it seems like questions have calmed down. So I guess we're going to get out of here and go play a bunch of video games on the Nintendo Wii. Or I guess it's the Switch these days, but
we're gonna go play a bunch of N64 games on the Switch.
Yeah,
I think I might just finish downloading. So
yeah, 2022.
Now I really have to go. I've got things to do.
All right, we are gonna get out of here. Thank you, chat. We appreciate all y'all hanging out, asking us questions, all of that kind of stuff. We're back tomorrow with the pregame, postgame, all of that goodness, and then we are gonna be off on Friday. With the game Saturday. So we appreciate y'all. We hope you will be back tomorrow. And until then, we will talk to you on the next one.